To make this speech more interesting for the audience, I've been advised to try to be engaging by having meaningful facial expressions, looking in the eyes, try to capture your attention. Some people with autism, however, might not be interested in my efforts to socially engage. What is causing this difference, and when? Autism is usually diagnosed after 3 years of life, so one could think that maybe different difficulties in socialization emerge around this age, all of a sudden. However, researchers have shown that autism is highly influenced by genetic background, which is there since the beginning of the individual's life. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about the gene of autism, there is no such thing, and I'm not even referring to small but single variations of the DNA, like disruptions of the DNA, which are severe but quite rare. Instead, I'm talking about common genetic variations, which are the same that make me shorter than you, or my eyes darker than yours, or maybe me less extrovert than you. Well, these variations, which are found more often in people with autism, identify autism risk genes. And guess what? These autism risk genes seem to be involved in the development of the brain. So with my thesis, I want to test the hypothesis that carrying a high number of autism risk genes make your brain less efficient in processing social stimuli since infancy, and that this will lead to later difficulties in socialization. I do this by observing the development of infants at high risk for autism, that is, younger siblings of children who already received a diagnosis. Why at high risk? Well, consider this, the rate of autism is 20 times higher for these children, like the high-risk siblings, than for the typical population. So I used electroencephalography to look at the brain activity in these infants, and I found that already in infancy, these high-risk siblings who later show difficulties in socialization show a reduced brain activation when looking at faces compared with typically developing infants. So now the next step is to look at their DNA and see whether carrying a high number of autism risk genes is responsible for this difference. And if this is the case, then we might plan early interventions for all infants at high risk for autism. So this is my thesis, and I hope I got you interested in it, also for the real content of it and not for the facial expressions I made.